Hey everyone, how's it going? I am Xeracon and I am back once again. Recently, it seems like the discussion of difficulty in video games has been discussed quite a bit, and I wanted to talk about that today. Now, it's been somewhat talked about mainly because of games journalists, but I want to talk about it in general because I think this is a more applicable topic since the general population of gamers aren't journalists. And I think there's no real clear-cut answer for this debate because there are so many facets to consider that there's no one-size-fits-all for this. So just to get this out of the way, for the whole debate on games like Dark Souls getting an easy mode, I think that it should not have an easy mode. I think that the true soul, so to speak, of a Souls game is its difficulty. It's you overcoming problems through repetition, through learning, through adapting to the style. And even if you are someone, say for example, if you're playing a Souls game and you are going in with a particular build, you can still find a way to get around it with enough practice. So for example, I make a guts build in my Dark Souls game, so I'm normally just walking around with a ultra great sword, no shield, and that leaves me compromised to times where a shield could be or would be useful. But I don't do that, and I use a ultra great sword, so that also makes my sword slower than someone who's using a straight sword or the like, or heck, even daggers. But I willingly put this burden on myself while still trying to solve how to get around it through brute force or through tenacity. And in that case, I would say that the difficulty should not be changed at all. And for people who think that it should be altered, I am going to make a bit of a counterpoint to what I just said. In games where people think that the games are too easy, like say for example Pokemon, Pokemon shouldn't have a hard mode because it is geared towards a casual audience. Pokemon games are games where you are supposed to just, go through at your own pace, enjoy it, and enjoy the adventure that you're on. So for games like those, I wouldn't say I would argue against them having a harder difficulty. But I think that in that instance, it boils down to the audience. Not every game is for everyone. And while I have said that games should be on platforms, that doesn't necessarily mean that every game should be for every person. Like, the game should be available for you if you want to buy it, if you want to try it out, but the game isn't going to be a guarantee that it's for your tastes. For example, puzzle games, they're not for everyone, and they shouldn't try to be for everyone. And I think the same thing applies to Pokemon, to Dark Souls, to pretty much any game. Like, if they have a core design behind them, they shouldn't be altered just for the general population. That really destroys what makes it interesting and distinct from any other game. But as far as games with difficulty settings go, people can play whatever they want. Like, if you want to play on easy, that's your prerogative. If you want to play a game on the more difficult settings, that is also your prerogative. I personally aim for normal because that is, in most cases, the ideal setting to play the game at, the way that the gamers or the game designers intended it to be played. And normally it's just because it's that nice, good spot of difficulty. And I'll be honest, when I have tried playing games on harder difficulties, one problem that seems to be plaguing games is that they aren't balanced right, or that they don't get hard mode right, or they don't do it correctly. Things that I've seen in games with harder difficulties is the fact that the enemies are just bullet sponges or tanks, and that seems to be the main thing, and they just deal extra damage, and that's really their sole point. Or they deal just twice as much damage, which, can be fine on occasion, but it just seems like they just make enemies beefier without really any thought about what makes the game more difficult. I'll give a good example of this is Metroid Zero Mission. The hard difficulty is really just brutal because it halves your HP, but then it also makes enemies a whole lot stronger and deal more damage, which isn't really it's not really what I would call a good hard mode. Personally, a hard mode would be where enemies have, or they can have, like, more defense or more HP, something like that. But don't make them bullet sponges, and also improve their AI. Like, for example, if you're playing a first-person shooter, an enemy should be using better tactics. They shouldn't be just rushing in and allowing you to shoot them, or heck, even with like in an action game. Again, don't have them just run straight towards you and just get pulverized. Like, improve their AI, improve their tactics, improve their thinking process. And I would actually say that fighting games, for the most part, do a good job at difficulty. How the CPU plays is really relative to the difficulty setting. There's no adjustments of their health, their attack, their defense. It's all the same because it's the same character. However, how they play is completely different. And I think that that's what fighting games do right. Like, I mean, with the exception of like the final bosses in games where you could say like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, like the final boss of like Shao Kahn and Bison, where, you know, they're legendary for being unfair. I would say that fighting games actually do the difficulty setting correctly, so there's that. But that's purely what I think about the entire difficulty settings. I don't think that it should be, again, I don't think it's something that's clearly cut and dry. If the devs are creating a game and they said, hey, we want to create a difficulty setting, that's fine. But if they don't want to add one in there and create that because they want to like they already have a mindset of how the game should be played, then I think that's also fine as well. But I don't think that coming in later on and saying like, hey, you know, we want this to be altered because it would be more applicable, or it's something that we could be easier to get into, I don't think that should be necessarily be the case, or something, or in other cases, we want this to be harder so it's better for us to get into. I don't think that's the case because, as I said before, video games aren't for everyone. If this one game or one series isn't for you, you can still go out and play another game series, or you can still find a game that is with the same relative genre. Like, for example, Dark Souls is what, an action adventure RPG. There are still action adventure RPGs out there for you to play, so not playing Dark Souls isn't going to hamper you. Similarly, if Pokemon's not for you, you can still go out there and play other JRPGs. Like, that's not the only one. Like, it's only really the brand and title that are interesting you. But that will do it for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on difficulty settings in games and how they're used? So until next time, everyone, I am iamxeracon signing off. Have a good one.